NASA will help Europe make its mark on the International Space Station this week when Space Shuttle Atlantis carries the Columbus Laboratory into orbit. The Columbus Lab was named after a great explorer and is designed to sail through the ocean of space as a crucial part of the space station. It will host teams of astronauts hoping to unlock new discoveries. The module from the European Space Agency will ride into orbit aboard Space Shuttle Atlantis to take its place on the cutting edge of space science. Atlantis is also carrying a crew of veteran astronauts and first-time flyers who will attach Columbus and then activate the laboratory in orbit.
Well, to this point, we've spent a lot of time building the infrastructure of the space station, so we're really looking forward to getting some of the laboratory modules and other facilities that will actually be able to use the space station for research, and the Columbus is a big part of that.
It is another critical mission for NASA and its international partners as they set the stage for years of intense research in microgravity.
So yeah, no pressure. A lot of folks are going to be watching us, and it's very important that we do it right.
Live from Kennedy Space Center, this is the STS-122 Astronaut Webcast.
Welcome and thanks for joining us today as we take a backstage tour of the 24th Space Shuttle mission to the International Space Station, STS-122. I'm your host, Allard Beutel, News Chief here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, where Space Shuttle Atlantis is going through some final preparations before liftoff. On today's webcast, we're going to take an in-depth look at the mission and the work that awaits the Atlantis 7 crew members. We'll also be joined by a special guest, Dr. Robert Satcher, who will be sharing some of his perspectives on preparing for a mission to the station. He'll also take some of your questions that you've emailed through nasa.gov website. That's all coming up, but first let's focus on the main purpose of the STS-122 mission. The addition of the Columbus Research Laboratory sets the stage for a major boost in science on the station. Here's a closer look at the European Space Agency's largest contribution to the space station.
The Columbus Laboratory is Europe's first crewed spacecraft, and it will be the second module designed for research duties to reach the International Space Station. NASA's own science segment, called Destiny, has been in orbit since 2001. A third from the Japanese Space Agency is due to reach space early in 2008. Columbus began its life in Turin, Italy, as a 23-foot-long, 15-foot-wide cylinder, enhanced with micrometeoroid shields and other structures so it could survive in space. It was taken to Bremen, Germany, to extensively outfit its interior to host 10 phone booth-sized racks that will make up the module's research ability. 4 of the racks are designed for specific experiments into microgravity fields, including human reactions to space and studies into how fluids and crystals grow and behave. A 5th rack designed to store specialized equipment is also packed on board Columbus for launch. The racks and experiments will be activated shortly after Columbus is attached to the space station. Spacewalkers will also connect a pair of experiments to the outside of the module that will take advantage of the vacuum of space. The experiment racks and other gear were loaded into the Columbus module at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The module itself was flown aboard a modified transport plane to Kennedy in 2006 to go through an intense schedule of preparations before launch into space. Since arriving, Columbus has been put through extensive testing, including being lowered into a vacuum chamber to make sure its air will not leak into space. A team of European Space Agency officials and European contractors were joined by NASA and contractors to prepare the module for launch. It was moved to the launch pad in early November and is now carefully cocooned inside Atlantis for its launch.
And now we're pleased to welcome our guest, astronaut Dr. Bobby Satcher, to the show. Bobby, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming down here for the launch. It's a good show tomorrow. You've obviously led a very accomplished career. You've been you're a medical doctor, a researcher, a surgeon. Mm-hmm. Why astronaut? Again, you thinking that you needed to pad your resume? Is it you're an overachiever? And why astronaut?
It's just something I wanted to do ever since I was a little kid. You know, I looked up like every other little kid at the night sky and said, wow, it would be great to actually go there and be able to participate in exploring space. So back in 2004, they were looking for another class. I, applied back then and was lucky enough to be selected, and it's been a great adventure ever since.
Well, we're lucky to have you on board in the astronaut corps. But medical school and now astronaut training. I'm not going to ask you to compare the two, because it's really not fair to say which one's harder. But how do they compare, the training that you've had for both?
Yeah, they have some similarities, but there are differences, which does make it a little bit like comparing apples and oranges. But I think the similarities are enlightening. I mean, it takes really almost 2 years to get through the basic curriculum to become an astronaut. Medical school, of course, is 4 years, but medical school is 2 years of studying and then 2 years of practical stuff. And I think it really helped a lot in terms of allowing me to prepare to be able to assimilate a large amount of material in an intense environment. And that's really what the astronaut training program is. You got a very diverse and large volume of material that you have to learn. You have to learn about all the different systems, the space station, the space shuttle. We also fly jet trainers called the T-38s, and you have to be proficient with that. You have to learn about scuba diving so that you can do all the EVA training. And you got to do all of that, and you do a lot of classroom learning too. So it's physically demanding, mentally demanding, and very challenging. But it prepares you very well for when you're going to actually go and fly in outer space, so that you feel comfortable doing that.
Well, you've done research on the skeletal system, and it's one of your research areas. That's obviously one of the areas that NASA looks at for long-duration space flights. That you have to overcome these. Space is hard on people. It's not a friendly environment for us to be there. But if we're going to go out back to the moon and on to Mars and for long periods of time, we need to have that kind of research. How does your background help us prepare for that and help NASA get ready for that?
Yeah, in my former career, I did do a lot of research on the musculoskeletal system. NASA, of course, has a very specific interest in knowing what happens to the body when you go into outer space. The funny thing is that we do adapt. There's some programming within us or whatever that makes it possible for us to adapt to being in a low-gravity environment. So that's interesting in itself just to think about. And specifically what you have to do when you're in outer space is you have to do resisted exercises so that you preserve the mass of your skeleton and your muscular mass. And on a long-duration mission like going to Mars, we also right now are trying to prepare for the contingency that a crew member may get sick or something like that and might not be able to work out as vigorously. So, of course, there are other measures that are possible to preserve the skeleton, pharmacological interventions, and this is really the main area, I think, of the physiology research going on right now. So.
Well, one of the things that we often talked about, being a surgeon, you have to have good hands. We've heard the same thing on the NASA side, that with spacewalkers, you have to have good hands to be able to do all the construction that we're doing up there, and any kind of work, science we're going to do up on the moon and on Mars. How do the two compare?
Well, I think we have the example of some previous doctors who have, flown and gone aboard the space station that we can reference, like Dr. Perezinski. He's not a surgeon, he's an emergency room doctor, but nonetheless, his remarks were that, the space station was a very special patient, and of course he did a wonderful job repairing the solar array. So I think there is a precedent that says that doctors can make pretty decent astronauts too.
Well, not that you're making a pitch for your next flight, but yeah, that is good experience. And actually, most of the space station missions do require multiple spacewalks, and they also include hardware up to make maintenance. And in this particular case, for the STS-122 mission, 3 spacewalks are planned, and possibly a 4th, along with a lot of robotics work, which you've got experience in. Let's listen to what some of the STS-122 crew members had to say as they prepare for their mission aboard the International Space Station.
The crew of STS-122 is led by a veteran astronaut, Commander Stephen Frick. He flew aboard Atlantis as a pilot during the STS-110 mission, which attached the central section of the power truss to the outside of the International Space Station. With Atlantis taking another key component into orbit, Frick said the commanding role means he must have broad knowledge of every crew member's work.
I wouldn't say it was learning anything specific. It was more kind of expanding the scope from my first mission where I was the pilot. I had very defined duties, and so you can really dig your teeth into learning all the systems in the orbiter. And so being the commander, having to learn a lot more about spacewalks and in the details of the Columbus module itself and what the goals are with that laboratory module were the challenges, I think.
Astronauts will make several spacewalks during STS-122 to connect Columbus and outfit it for work. Stan Love will be one of the spacewalkers.
My job on the spacewalk will be to ride on a special tow clip on the end of the station's robotic arm. And from that position, I will be carrying two large science instruments out of the shuttle's payload bay and mounting them onto the outside of the Columbus module, which we will have just added to the space station.
Love will also operate the space station's robot arm during other spacewalks. It's a different perspective for tasks that are already difficult to master.
There's no similarity. They're totally different things, and in fact, that is one of the difficult parts of it. Since I have both roles on the flight, and often the two are at odds for each other. So it's kind of a challenge remembering which hat I'm supposed to be wearing at which time.
Astronaut Leland Melvin, also making his first space shuttle flight, will drive the shuttle's 50-foot-long robot arm to maneuver spacewalkers around the outside of the station and Columbus. By the time he does it in space, he will have practiced the precise work for hours on end in simulators.
When we get up to space to do the installation, it should be second nature, and it should just go smoothly.
Melvin also talked about the excitement of getting assigned to his first mission.
Well, when I first got the call was on my cell phone, and I was actually at home at the time. And I just got out of the shower, and I was, hung the phone up and started jumping around, celebrating. And I have a dog, Jake is my dog, and he was looking at me like I was crazy, like, what's going on here? It was a very good day, very exciting day.
Love, who also worked in astronomy before joining NASA's astronaut corps, said he does not expect to have much time to look at the sky during the shuttle mission.
And honestly, I'm not going to do much astronomy from the shuttle. Our opportunities to look out the window are very limited. Back in the day when the shuttle would launch up and pop out a satellite and then hang out for a couple days and come home, they had time to look out the window and photograph the Earth and things. I am hoping I can find enough time to look out, and I suppose the thing I'll be most interested in seeing is the planet Earth, because it's big and close and you can see stuff.
The astronauts know they could return to the space station in the future for a much longer stay as an expedition crew member.
Yeah, I think, getting exposure to space on a, 11, 12-day mission is great. I would jump at the chance to go for a 6-month stay.
Oh, they sound like they're ready to fly. Bobby, several people have submitted questions through nasa.gov.
Good.
And
right.
Before you answer a few, I do have one of my own. I want to indulge myself. It's been known that astronauts since the beginning of the Mercury program, 4 decades have been taking personal items up with them, mementos, things that help them make the transition from Earth to space. When you take your flight, not to put you on the spot and not to make it too personal, but what are some of the things you're thinking about taking up with you?
Yeah, that's the first time anybody's asked me that. But
won't be the last.
It won't be the last, you're right. I think, I'll probably take some pictures of family members and take some sort of, device that'll allow me to bring music up that I want to hear. And then, probably there'll be some other suggestions from people in terms of memorabilia. I'm sure there'll be no shortage of that.
I think you'll have friends and family will help you with that.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
All right, we'll get to the questions that people have submitted. Bill from Buffalo, New York asks, well, it's a good question, what type of science will be done on Columbus that makes it different than the science we're currently doing on the space station?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our ability to do scientific experiments is actually limited right now because the only platform we have for it is the U.S. lab. And the U.S. lab is actually smaller than it was originally planned to be. So the Columbus module greatly expands our ability to do experimentation. And there's a whole host of experiments that are sort of backlogged that we want to do. And so this is going to be a wonderful addition to the space station and allow us to get to some of these additional experiments. There are sort of four main categories that the Columbus has a capacity for. The first category is biomedical experiments on human physiology. And then we also have the capacity to do microscopic experiments on bacteria and viruses and microorganisms. There's another palette which primarily is for experimenting on fluids, so looking at the behavior of fluids and microgravity. And then finally, there's some palettes that will go outside of the Columbus module but are attached to it, which allow us to evaluate the behavior of materials in outer space.
Now, the Columbus module is the European Space Agency's largest contribution to the space station. 2008 really is a year for NASA, for its international partners, really dedicated to various laboratories and our other partners, which leads to the next question that from Nate from Grand Rapids asks, what kind of language training do the astronauts go through to perform their missions to the space station, considering Russia and Japan play pivotal roles? Do all NASA astronauts know how to speak Russian or Japanese, or do they have a translator on board at all times?
Well, the main language that most other astronauts know how to speak is Russian. We actually have a language center, and there's a dedicated faculty of people that teach us different languages. So you can learn any language that you actually want to. I think Russian has been the most important language because of the relationship between NASA and the Russian Space Agency in building the International Space Station. But there are astronauts who also know how to speak Japanese, French, German, etc. I've just started my training in Russian, and I hope one day to be fluent in it. I'm not there yet. Got a ways to go. So.
You're a lot better than I'm doing. Tatiana, age 10, from Los Angeles, asks us, it's a historical question for us. Who developed the first space shuttle, and what has been the space shuttle's effect on history?
Oh, that's a good question. NASA has developed and flown the space shuttle. It started flying back in the early 80s, and we expect that it's going to fly through 2010 when we complete the space station. Maybe it'll even fly beyond that, but we don't have a mandate for that yet. But the space shuttle has made it possible to build the space station. And of course, these are all sort of baby steps that we have to take to be able to explore the solar system first and then go beyond it. I think the next thing that we'll be doing is actually building a colony on the moon, and we'll use what we learned from building the space station to facilitate that. And of course, this all goes back again to the space shuttle, which was really the beginning of it all. So a very important program that's existed for us.
Well, that actually leads me to our final question. Eddie from Belfast, Ireland, talks about, we just went from the end of the beginning of the shuttle program, and he asked a question about the end of the shuttle program. When is the current fleet planning to be retired? And you kind of alluded to that. And what's taking its place? Well,
the next space vehicle is the Orion, and that's what we're going to use to continue our trips to the space station and to go on to the moon. So that should be in service sometime in the next 7 to 8 years. Right now, I think the projections are for around 2013 or so. So we're all looking forward to that. I certainly hope to be able to fly on that vehicle also, and we're definitely looking forward to going back to the moon.
The last part of his question was, is it being tested now in secret? And Eddie, I'll take the hit on that. Obviously, I'm not doing my job promoting it enough, so I'll let you know that if you want to find out more information about the Orion spacecraft, you go to www.nasa.gov/exploration. Well, that again was our last question. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you coming here and answering our viewers' questions. Of course, we want to thank all of our web viewers for submitting those questions in the first place. Remember to tune to NASA's home on the internet, www.nasa.gov/shuttle, throughout the STS-122 mission to find out the latest updates. I'm Allard Beutel. Thanks for watching.